We're live. Welcome everybody to Appropriate Culture. We have another fantastic episode today with a good friend of mine, old friend of mine. Well, I know him as Brock. Some of you might know him as Kabeia. And I wanted to give you guys a quick introduction here so people are aware, so sort of what you've been up to, a little bit about you before we start chopping it up. But in regards to your overall bio that we're gonna get started with, Kabeia Rineaki Brock Sutton Allen was born in the Republic of Kiribati, a tiny Pacific nation known for being a potential climate change victim, losing national land to the rise ocean waves. He's worked with the UN, with UN, his home government, and in several nonprofits with the goal of increasing liberty and abolishing ignorance. He's now based out of the mountains in Utah, but he still plans on returning to take over his small island nation. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm surviving, as they would say. I'm a fish out of water up here in the mountains, but I love it. I mean, I've really grown fond of this host nation that I think I didn't get my citizenship until I was in high school.
Okay.
Yeah, but I grew up out here, or I grew up around you, up in Seattle.
Yeah.
And so to be able to experience just another facet of American life is more in the more central mountainous area in Utah. It's a wonderful opportunity, and I appreciate it for all of its natural beauty.
Yeah, I've heard it's absolutely beautiful over there. It's I mean, just like jaw-dropping views and sceneries.
Yeah, and one thing that Utah has over Seattle, unfortunately, is that they have an actual basketball team, which as you, I don't know if you remember our old buddy Joe Chong, who was constantly talking about how we need to bring back the Sonics. And
oh yeah, man. There's still that crowd here in Seattle that they're just sort of it's like the hopeless romantic who's just hoping that this comes back at some point or another and we can turn this franchise around.
You know what? I think Seattle's more likely to get its basketball team back than I am to ever meeting Emma Watson. So we're all hopeless romantics in some way.
I love it. Well, I guess first things first. How are you doing?
So I've got my hands in a lot of different things right now. My country's recently come back into the international spotlight because China is wanting to build or expand a military use airport on one of our islands. And it's always been a source of great intrigue, a little bit of espionage, a little political maneuvering and stuff, because Kiribati is, even though it's a tiny island nation, it has a very critical spot out in the ocean. It's right at the international date line and the equator. And so in some sense, because it straddles all four hemispheres, it's kind of the center of the world. And China would love to get its hands on that as a position to island leapfrog to other strategic locations and stuff. So that's been I've been slightly involved with a group called Kiribati First. I didn't name it, but it was a coalition of the opposition party. The opposition party led a coalition to try to have a vote of no confidence for our president, the highest office in the land. And what's interesting about that is that as opposed to like sort of what's the American, I'm losing my mind. What's the with Trump? What with Trump and stuff, like what's the thing that he was like they were trying to bump him out of
are you talking about
impeachment? That's right.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah. That took me an hour to remember.
You're good.
So as opposed to impeachment in the American process, a vote of no confidence in Kiribati specifically. It's not really found in any other national body. If you say, hey, we as members of parliament do not have confidence in this president, we're going to do this vote of no confidence, it means everybody, including the members of parliament, has to get reelected. So you're putting your job on the line in order to make a statement to say that we need to get this person who's in charge replaced, and I'm willing to sacrifice my own job or risk losing my own job in order to do the right thing and stuff.
Right.
So it's not something that can be just tossed out or some sort of substanceless signal. It's a very substantive effort, and so that's just another weird thing that we got going on for a bunch of kind of obscure islanders out in the Pacific.
Wow. Okay, so I think this is a great place to start here, because the China topic, especially here in the United States, is quite well, obvious. There's in many ways people automatically associated with a communist country, which for obvious reasons, but then also they have been seeming to go after all kinds of countries for all kinds of reasons, which pretty much always means that when you really assess the reasoning, it really comes down to they're just expanding left and right. And they've been doing so for quite some time in a very savage way. Why do you think China is such a soft spot when for Americans?
I think China is increasingly becoming a topic of fixation, or I guess a sore point, or a sore spot for Americans, because we have definitely, I say that as a citizen here. I have a tendency to jump back and forth and put on these different hats. So as a fellow American in this moment, we definitely have a tendency to harken back to the days where American had a hegemony, a political and cultural dominance over the world.
Yeah.
And so much to the point that quality was synonymous with American-made products, where dominance of industries in other countries was seen as sort of the plaything for American businessmen, and where the safety of American citizens was guaranteed by a seemingly invincible military power.
Yeah.
And that's something that's becoming increasingly shaken, or at the very least questioned, by Chinese expansion efforts. And I'd like to, if there's anything that I can, I really want to hammer down, it's that in the end, I do admire China. It's such a fascinating culture, and the people are just they're so rich with ancient societal practices and culture that a lot of countries can't always say they have the same, or at least not to that extent. And the amazing things that have happened for China are, like, you'd have to be a real ignoramus to deny that China is becoming greater and stronger. And it's through a multitude of avenues. But I'd say that a larger amount. I'd say that a larger amount is due to the success of the special economic zones, like Shenzhen. I apologize if I mispronounce it. That these places where they've allowed for almost rampant capitalism to take root, they've formed the power base of the new, I guess, Chinese empire. And with the businesses and with the flourishing businesses that take place in these special economic zones, where these traditionally communist practices or traditionally communist laws have been paused, if you will, or withdrawn for a bit. Um, that money is now able to bankroll the expansion efforts into the Pacific, into Africa, so much to the point where Africa is now considered China's China.
Yeah.
Whereas the rest of the world seemed to export all of its labor or all of its manufacturing to China. Now
Yeah.
China has the opportunity to do that in other countries, in other Pacific and Asian countries, and definitely in Africa.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, man, you're totally right. Because when it comes down to it, I've been to China. I was in Beijing for a few weeks and I was representing Microsoft at the time. And
Wow.
I just remember that you could pick up that there was such a level of obedience and consistency with wanting to be part of the bigger picture as opposed to everybody just being an individual. And so you could tell that there was this discipline instilled into their nations that I don't see here in the United States. In many ways, call it what you want. If they have some sort of a bigger grip and controlling their people in sort of tactical ways that might intimidate them, we have a lot of freedom. Like, you're allowed to talk, make a bunch of crap about the president and post it, and then nothing's going to happen to you here in the United States, right? Yet we complain about not having rights. We complain about suppression here in the United States, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think you've really seen, the kind of suppression that you're talking about. And in some ways, it's almost cool to hate on the United States as an American nowadays, especially if you're in the younger ages. Why do you think that is?
I
You know what I mean, though?
I definitely do. And so I guess my initial hesitation is I'm trying to suppress my inner Alex Jones and just start spouting off like on who it is.
Pure entertainment, man.
Yeah,
just
and just how they're making the freaking frogs gay or something. But I guess when it comes down to it, what I see the biggest tragedy of the American dream is the loss of critical institutions like education. We've ceded a lot of, and I think I see that as an American, as an America loving American. If ever there was a group of patriots that could call themselves that, we have ceded a lot of critical territory to a group of people that see themselves as citizens of the world, and as globe-trotting, cosmopolitan urbanites, that they feel like they aren't so much loyal to the country that they benefit from, but more so from this vague, nebulous idea of being part of the global community, if you will. And for better or for worse, that's it can be a pretty slippery slope, because you begin to lose sight of what makes local communities special, because you're almost automatically prioritizing what's super cool in some other city, in some other country, or whatever. And I think that you can strike a really good balance of being informed and being cultured while still appreciating the local beauty. In all my I guess in whatever little travel I've done in my life, and I've been to less than a dozen countries, but in that little travel that I have been able to witness, I'm continually just awestruck by the beauty of the American mainland. And there's so much space, and there's so much potential here. I still can feel that here in Utah, where people are kind of shifting away from the Silicon Valley solutionism, or the sort of the bugmen ethos of just like constantly trying to plug it into another app. Like, people are trying to start businesses, but they're also still community oriented and stuff here in Utah. And if I could, I would try to export this anomaly to the rest of the U.S. Because I feel like it strikes the balance of of altruism or tolerance, as well as traditionalism and patriotism.
Yeah.
So I guess in the end, wow, this is really bad tangent. I apologize, Lucas.
No, man. No. This is exactly where, yeah, this is good. Please give me the whole thing.
I guess what I was trying to get around to saying was that the reason why kids think it's super cool and edgy, and they have increasingly so throughout the generations, to hate on this country that they're living in, is because they're spending the majority of their time away from families, and they're doing it in schools that are administrated by bureaucrats, a growing glut of bureaucrats that are loyal to unions or that are loyal to specific political ideologies.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking it was so silly, both at Skyline High School. I don't know what it was like down in Issaquah, but like at Skyline High School, I just thought it was silly that I was constantly defending America, or I was defending this country that I just barely become a citizen and stuff.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
and you know what? I think there's something that can be learned from I guess both sides of this discussion. I guess the more cosmopolitan left and the more locally oriented right, and that we could still have a very productive dialogue going on. But it's not going to happen in really entrenched lands or territory, like in education. And that's probably half the problem, is that you
Sure.
can't have that dialogue when you have a teacher that's actively hostile to kids saying that they like where they're living. They have to be told that no, they hate it or something. I think that'd be a huge contributing factor in my eyes.
Yeah. No. I think you nailed it. That's what I think is happening primarily, which is it's essentially this indoctrination camps. You're not going there to get a degree, you're getting there to get an attitude. And so at the end of the day, it's, you're posed with the perspective that you're going to get education, when really a lot of these teachers are just shoving down their own opinions. And I think this is the line that we've completely have screwed up when it comes down to journalism and when it comes down to teachers nowadays, is nobody's actually giving the information. They're coming in with their prerequisites and their emotions and their feelings that they've acquired over the years, and treating it as if it's facts. And so it's a dangerous one, because one, you end up creating a self-hating country, where we already know that if you were to apply that perspective to yourself as an individual, that's a self-destructive way of going about things, because there's not much progress that you can make if you're already starting at that level. You're starting at an angry place, you're looking for faults, and you're being highly emotional a lot of the times. Do you think that, I mean, it's known that majority of teachers are females in the school system. And it's also known the majority of females are also democratic, more liberal. I personally noticed for a fact that that's what I was dealing with in school. And just like yourself, there were certain things that I would have to curb and, not go down that route if I didn't want a bad time thrown my way.
Get a bad grade.
Yeah. Like, did you have any specific experience that happened to you where you decided to, voice your opinion, and you clearly were being maneuvered and handled so you couldn't spread that idea a little farther?
Oh yeah, totally. I in a sense, I almost appreciate getting, or I guess making my bones, if you will, in deep blue territory like Washington.
Yeah.
Because I think it's kind of made me a bit of a stronger orator, and it's hardened my rhetoric. I think in a way that I might not have ever gotten had I if I had a different experience. So yeah, all throughout high school, and maybe even as far back as middle school, there were times where I just noticed that teachers would specifically uh, pin me as the villain in the classroom, which was kind of and I guess the only way that I was able to counteract that, it was by um, constantly playing the role of the class clown.
Yeah.
And I think you probably remember that from
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
going to
My
school
memories are
together.
starting to come in right now. Yeah.
And so that sort of I guess mischievous nature automatically plays well with those who uh, question authority and would be willing to open their minds to alternative sources of information, or at least not automatically take the presented facts as at face value. And so there were I think the biggest times that I noticed that I was getting handled was when I would be given um, uh, a sort of a trap, um, or I'd be handed a situation where obviously I was having to take the side of evil capitalism, or
Yeah.
just whatever wicked villain we were reading about in English or in history. And I was almost like literally asked to defend the bad guys. And so the only way that you can kind of play that off is by embracing the childish or the mischievous side, and just saying like, "Ooh, yeah, you know what? Maybe I do believe in that, and like maybe I am a bad person and stuff." And then slowly transition, or I guess what you call it, subtly transition into pivoting to the actual issue and stuff. And so
Yeah.
if you're given a paper, or if you're reading a story about um, how guns were used in a mass shooting situation and stuff, then you're kind of obligated to then pivot to the use of the Second Amendment for defending yourself in such a situation. Um, it's
Right.
not going to automatically come to everyone, and you have to kind of be on guard, or prepare yourself um, mentally for those sort of challenging situations where you are essentially given the trap of like, well, if you really believe in if you think you're such a good person or whatever, and if you value human life, why would you ever want people to have assault rifles to kill people in schools and stuff? You need to immediately pivot away from that, or you should probably uh, approach that with a sense of humor in order to like diffuse the automatic hostility that they're coming at you with,
Right.
and then pivoting uh, while engaging in the dialogue in good faith will automatically flip the tables for the agitator, if you will, because then your audience will see that they are that that there's an agenda there, and that you're willing to still meet them in the middle ground with humor, as well as bring more information to the discussion. And
Yeah.
that additional information being like how, if you were armed, or if teachers were allowed to be armed in classrooms, you wouldn't have to wait for that critical time when for emergency responders, for cops and paramedics to get to the school. And I think on average, most cities usually were snagging like 10-minute wait times. That's a lot of
Response.
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot of people that can get killed while schools and while students and teachers are waiting for the cops to finally get there and hopefully handle the situation. Whereas if uh, my I think my grandparents, if not my parents, they lived in a time where in rural schools, kids could casually bring in their hunting rifles and stuff because they were going to go hunting after school or so. Because my mom grew up in upstate New York, and uh, in rural New York, and my dad grew up in Arizona, and where that sort of Western or cowboy and hunting as culture and aesthetic is dominant.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, we just need to always be aware that sometimes even those who've been given critical positions of power or authority over our children in our schools are going to be engaging in these bad faith dialogues or seeming dialogues, when in fact they're traps, or they're just agenda laced statements. It's
Yeah.
not so much, what do you think about this? It's more just like, you're a bad person, and I want to embarrass you in front of the entire class,
Yeah.
and I hope that you don't have anything to actually challenge me with, because I have a clear agenda here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've noticed the name calling has gotten to like a whole nother level in regards to, it's almost like there is no more option to have a dialogue. It's just straight up, you either get on board with what we said is the new thing that everybody should accept, or you are a sexist, a racist, a Hitler, a whatever, insert some ridiculous thing that has almost zero base to it. I'm sure, I've been able to follow some of your content recently, especially over the last year. And I gotta be honest, dude, it's hilarious. I mean, the comical spin that you put on some of these real life situations, like pop culture stuff and politics involved, is brilliant. I love it. I think it's the way to do it. But I can definitely, if I were to guess, I'm sure you've pissed a few people off here and there in regards to just even sharing some certain things. When we describe our generation as a snowflake generation, do you see any means to that, or?
I think we've witnessed a critical shift from the engaged or the informed citizen to the consumer, the political bystander, where and it's the worst type. It's political amateurism drives me nuts, because you have so many
Yeah.
people, so the further democratizing the ability for people to project their voices has not only allowed for unheard and suppressed voices to be heard, but it's also allowed for just dumb people to just have a chance to say whatever they want as loud as
Whatever.
possibly.
Yeah.
And so we take that bad with the good. And unfortunately, if you have a great aesthetic, if you're pretty enough and stuff, you can get away with saying garbage,
Yeah.
whether or not you actually have anything to back it up. And
Yeah.
so these people who are just who are purely visual, or what's the word? They're just purely pretty people, unlike us.
Yeah.
Me and you, Lucas, who are both beautiful
We
and
have to
intelligent.
work for what we have here. We got to bring in
Yeah.
hard facts and research.
Well, we've got to back up all these good looks with actual substance, because we
You
know
know what
it's
I'm
not enough
saying?
to just be pretty. Yeah, absolutely.
Not for men, it's not. That's damn sure.
So it's this, I think the snowflake culture is a combination of, just your old fashioned, just like kids are spoiled these days, combined with the social media platforms that they can now feel empowered by, and
Right.
they can get involved instead of finding belonging in something bigger, whether it's your community, your nation, religion, or social programs, even things in the community. Uh, People are finding that sense of belonging in fandoms and mob mentality and trends and hashtags and junk. And I sound like
Yeah.
a freaking boomer right now. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I realize I'm boomer posting super hard, but it's I can't, I love the minor rebellions that you have within social media. Like on TikTok, I love it when people tell people when people tell kids, go outside and touch some grass. Like, like you need to get off your phone and
Yeah.
like interact with nature, because you're having a freaking bad time right now. You're
Yeah.
melting down, or you're clearly not thinking straight. And it's time for you to force yourself to get some bigger perspective, whether that's to interact with nature, go on a hike or something, or just get off the damn phone.
Yeah.
So I think if I were to offer my unsolicited solution to the snowflake issue, or all of our various social ills, it would be to seek the balance of the digital as well as the tangible and the physical. Go outside and touch some grass, get involved in your community, and to do the things that almost automatically balance out, or that teeter totter, the scales of justice, if you will, of your digital life with your more physical and tangible, the dirty nitty gritty and all that.
Yeah. No, 100%. And so I was going through your content earlier, and I picked up on the fact that you had experienced some censorship online. And I want to dive into that, because there's been a few videos that I've posted from the podcast that touched on subjects like COVID or the voting situation from this last election, and my videos were all getting taken down, flagged, and I'm like, at one point you kind of say to yourself, because sometimes they'll make it seem, when I mean they, in this situation it was Facebook. As I'm typing it out, the AI within that system can pick up on everything that's being done as it's being done. So keywords would just trigger things left and right. And it would literally say that, well, whoops, something went wrong. Looks like we can't post right now. They like try to make it seem like internet connection is off or some crap like that. Like, tell me a little bit about like what you had to go through.
Sure thing. So what I was deplatformed. I'd say twice, because it was on two separate social media companies.
So you are like Alex Jones. I don't know what you're talking about.
I could only wish. Alex Jones he has unmatched energy.
That guy, he's something else, man.
Confident enough to take his shirt off while he's streaming and stuff. And that's, I mean, I'm confident to go swimming and stuff. I'm an islander. I look good in the water. But to strut around or do it on camera and stuff, I'm not there yet. So it'll probably take a little more, I don't know, fluoride laced frogs or cocaine for me to get to that.
That's what I'm saying. Some more lizard people coming through.
The lizard people, the Illuminati Freemasons, the Queen of England isn't real. I don't know. So it's happened twice. I've been bumped off of social media, but it was with Facebook and Instagram. So technically same ownership and stuff, but separate platforms. Okay. So I wasn't surprised when after Facebook happened that Instagram eventually did, but it was surprising because it took a bit. And what happened with Facebook was I had my original Facebook profile, Brock Sutton Allen, with Kabeia Rineaki in parentheses, I think afterwards, just so that if anybody was looking for me for my birth islander name, they'd be able to find it. And if people were still wanting to find me by my American white name, they'd be able to find that too. And I had this account since middle school. And I had added friends from so many random things, from like scout camps, from church camps, from sports, from parties or whatever, just all over the place, all over the country. And I was getting up to, I think, 3,000 friends and stuff. So it wasn't like, I wasn't like a big deal, but I was definitely a Facebook power user, meaning I spent too much time on there and I had fully leveraged myself onto that platform. And I thought I was invincible because in my experience, when people got deplatformed, it was for whack reasons, and it was usually because somebody said that they were Nazis or something, and I was like, nobody could be silly enough to think that me, a 100% Gilbertese Pacific Islander, would possibly get bumped off for being called a Nazi or something else, something else silly or whatever. Um, I thought that these sort of names wouldn't stick on me, because I had the race card to play, and it was an obscure one. It was an appropriately hipster race card to play. Just like, oh, it's I'm Gilbertese. You might not have ever heard of it or something. You just like, I thought I was in the clear, but apparently not. And after repeated strikes for the most inane things, what the first one I remember was like years back, and it was for being an admin, or maybe not even an admin, and moderator for a blacklisted Facebook page. It was a pro military, like super conservative page that posted tons of memes and stuff. It was just like, go America, also buy our camo gear and stuff. And like, and every once in a while it dived into some edgy political stuff, but it was like a kind of like a Kirkland brand grunt gear or grunt wear or whatever, one of those conservative camo apparel, street fashion, whatever that you see all over the place. That was it. And I hadn't even posted anything on it, but my account got flagged. My personal account got flagged through that page as a moderator because you
just connected to it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I was like, okay, that's silly. That's random. It'll never happen again, probably. And I'll decline any other offers to moderate a page that I'm not in complete control of. And so I eventually went on to build up following with several meme or gimmick accounts, and as well as like broadly political ones, and almost all predominantly conservative ones. Some of them were just like dumb meme ones. The one that I'm sure got me in trouble, flagged me, but I was never notified, was hold journalists accountable with a rope. And it wasn't supposed to be like a direct, just like, let's hang the members of the press. It was a dude with a lasso. I made it very clear that it was a dude with a lasso, and he was chasing after a bunch of people with cameras and stuff. And they're like, run away. They're holding up big TV cameras, and he's just like, I'm gonna rope you up, and I'm gonna lasso you and stuff. And that was the picture. So I thought that was an
obvious joke.
Yeah, it was tongue in cheek enough, and all it did was it allowed for people to. It was both a I think it was primarily a group, and then we were starting to build a page around it, but it's primarily a group that we were adding members from other popular pages or groups and stuff that let people talk about when they were seeing journalists kind of goof up and not do their job right, or when they would say one thing and then immediately say the opposite thing. Yeah, because there was always that hypocrisy of just like, it's bad when a conservative does this. Also, how brave of a liberal for doing the exact same thing that we just bashed 2 months ago. And it was the best if it was the same author. I loved it when that happened. It was pure poetry. And my heart sang every time we had those memes or we had those sort of articles screenshotted side by side. And I Hypocrite was another big page, both on Facebook and Twitter, that did an amazing job that sort of built the foundation of that we were building off of. So those.
I mean, the hypocrisy is next level at this point.
Oh no, it's rampant.
It's next level.
And it's because they build up echo chambers where they have enough of their supporters, their friends, family, whatever, their simps.
Reinforcing it.
It's a feedback loop, and it's just like, oh, good job, and then we'll just ignore anything, and we'll just pretend that we don't ever see any of the negative or things that we should be critical about, and have like hold you accountable to how you didn't actually do your job.
You know, it's funny though, and this is probably going to be something that you and I can both relate in, which is because we both fall in the category of colored people. I hate that term. I think it's the dumbest shit ever. a lot of people who have some of the same takes that we have when it comes to being patriotic or, the system they would live in and whatnot, if they fall in the white category, they don't get a say at all, right? But if you're colored, we'll let you speak because you've been put down, you have been put in a situation where your life is less than, so now it's your turn to speak up. Well, what happens is this. Then you start to speak up and they find out, oh, he doesn't really agree with us and all the things that we agree on. You need to shut up too. So in many ways, it's like they will keep playing these different cards right up until you deviate from what what they want you to say. And that's what
It's
I
not part
found
of the plan.
hilarious. You know what I'm saying? They're like, oh, I didn't know he was going to throw me a curveball like this. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're colored. You're supposed to think all these other things that I think about. And I've noticed that, especially obviously growing up in Washington, I realized that that was basically left. Like, I was seeing that everywhere, which it was this sort of, people would approach me just because of the color of my skin, other colored people, and then they would strike up conversations as if we already knew each other and we're super cool with each other, and there is no rapport to build because of the color of our skin. And for the fact of the matter, that's completely, I think it's wrong to go about life like that. I think people's characters should outweigh the color of their skin every day of the week. And that should not be the defining factor of you wanting to connect with somebody. But I have seen the hypocrisy go to a level where it's almost like, here you have BLM fighting racism by being racist. You have Antifa fighting anti-fascists by being fascists themselves. You have the feminist group trying to put equality while at the same time trying to put a sex down so they can be superior in many ways. And so it's like, I could do this all day. And it seems to be a bit, well, obviously backwards, but why do you think that these different groups tend to be so, I don't know, radical in a way that it doesn't even make any logical sense if you take a step back and you assess how they're going about things?
Where's the consistency in these policies or these stances? Yeah, I agree completely. Why are they not only radical, but why is it like, how are they getting away with being so vocally stupid almost? I think it just it speaks to the level of entrenchment of the what's the word, the intelligentsia, or the educational / journalist industrial complex, if you will. This feedback, or this sort of coalition of cottage industries of journalists amplifying the work of academics that are saying what they want to hear, and academics catering to journalists that are, and all of them are on all of them are reading from the same radical leftist playbook,
drinking that same Kool-Aid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Also, I'm gonna go off on a big stupid tangent right now.
Let's do it.
If you're conservative, if you're religious, if anybody ever says to you, like, oh, you're just drinking the Kool-Aid, never let them do that to you, because the people that drinking the Kool-Aid is based off of Jimmy Jones, I think, Reverend Jimmy Jones, Johnny. I could be getting his first name wrong. Reverend Jones, the guy who took the cult of his believers down to South America, and they drank Kool-Aid that was laced with poison, and then they all killed themselves. Those guys were anti-religious and extremely leftist. Like, he started a religion as a way for him to, he was very explicit with it. He's like, I'm starting this weird fake church in order to get people to vote the way that I want them to do, and that is with the left. And so we're talking about a guy who was rubbing shoulders with Harvey Milk and Jimmy Carter's wife and stuff, and was receiving awards from the left. And so if anybody ever accuses you, if you're somebody like me in any way, and they're like, you're just drinking the Kool-Aid. Don't stand for it. Don't let them try to use something that is ultimately the left's fault, or the radical left's uh, own issue, as something that you have to answer for, as a slur against you. That's complete projection. Sorry, I
Oh yeah,
had
no,
to.
no.
I was welcome.
It's you. I mean, you nailed it, because I was just the interview I had yesterday was with my father, my dad, and we got into a great conversation. And one of the points that we got into was with, I don't know if you've read this book, but The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. And
I think I have a
maybe,
copy of it. I could be wrong though. I have some
yeah,
little
like,
history book on.
yeah. So I mean, in essence, it just talks about the beginning all the way to, the fall, and it lays out essentially where nations take a dive for the worst is when they, one, acquire so many resources that life is more on the luxurious side, as opposed to the you just need to get your needs met. And so we allow ourselves to have a lifestyle where now we have all this technology, all this comfort, all this food, and now suddenly we are entertaining some things that we were never entertaining before because we got too much time. And so now you start to see these nations develop all kinds of new ways of entertainment, new sexual preferences, and the whole nine yards, to the point where, as a virtue, our rules for what we thought is okay and is not okay ends up getting wider and wider and wider, because why not? Because, because we can.
Mhm.
And I see exactly what happened to the Roman Empire happening right now in the United States, like clockwork. Essentially, we built this great nation with resources and opportunities and a lifestyle that most people could never have. And you don't even get to do that much to acquire that lifestyle. And simultaneously, we're now finding out that we have, depression is through the roof. People's life purposes is pretty much almost non-existent for you to find somebody who actually knows what they're here to do, and they have a strong, mindset focus as to what they're here and what they got to do to, evolve into the person that they need to be. And so in many ways, one, I guess, do you see that happening? And if so, what do you think is some of the biggest contributing factors that's pushing us in that direction?
So I'm gonna switch the roles, or the hats that I'm wearing again, and I'm gonna take the position of an outsider, no longer somebody within America, but as somebody who ultimately had to go through this whole experience, not actually belonging all the time. And so, as a born citizen of the Republic of Kiribati, as somebody who's 100% Gilbertese, I would have to say that the fall of the American Empire, or the decline at where we're at right now, it's it's not completely lost yet, but we are readily eroding the critical pillars that are holding it up still.
Yeah.
And we're live streaming it the entire time. We're tweeting about it, or we're taking pictures of it and posting it on Instagram.
Selfies, yeah.
And we're taking selfies in front of it. And so, what can be done? I guess it would be one question that I think somebody would be remiss to not ask. I think we need to shore up our basic defenses. Education. We need to abolish the ignorance that comes from this excess, this rampant consumerism that encourages us to seek out pleasure from the most radical or exotic of sources. I think you're completely right in saying that there comes a point, like it's a tale as old as time. And as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we have built within our theology a something similar called the Nephite pride cycle, and that's you are righteous, you are blessed, and then you become lazy and idolatrous, and then wicked because of the blessings that you receive, and then with that wickedness comes suffering uh, and further pain, because you are no longer living in accordance to God's law. And with that comes humility, and then with that humility comes repentance, and then you are then blessed, and the cycle starts all over again.
Yeah.
And then in I think more secular circles, this is known as, or this meme is known by strong men create good times, good times
Yeah.
create weak men create hard times, and hard times create strong men. And so the
Yeah.
cycle continues, and the decline of a civilization is exasperated by its own success.
Yeah.
We are the DJ Khaled meme, suffering from success. Um, and that's something that you constantly have to be on guard for. I love that your last guest was your father, because the connection with the family is one of the most critical components of keeping a community together, keeping a civilization running.
Yeah.
And if we're not returning to our roots, if we don't have a connection to the land, if our blood is not being sown into the soil of the country that we live in, we become rootless. And as we become rootless, we seek out these esoteric pleasures. We become these live streaming, Instagram posting, TikTok dancing fools that
Yeah.
no longer are satisfied with the wholesome expression, the satisfied with the wholesome expressions of success, but we are now seeking out uh, serotonin from likes, or from
Yeah.
viewer counts, or whatever.
Trying to get that fix. Yeah.
Yep. And so I think I take back what I said about it just being about education. As we shore up our defenses with families, as we focus on what's most important to us, and we try to build our own families, and we seek out companions with compatible values, and look to the future of building those families up together and having children of our own, and raising them in a similar manner, that will be the ultimate punk rock expression, if you will, against this global machine that seems to be crushing our souls.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, shoot. I mean, at this point, you have kids telling on their parents online because they don't align themselves with the same political agreements. And I've seen some stories where uh like a daughter, in her teens would posted a video of her mom getting in a fight with somebody during like a BLM protest, and then posting her parents' names and then their address on the post as if like to get them back because she's for it. And so like when you start to see stories like that, you're like, wow, where did we go wrong? Like at what point did we get to this place where this is even reality?
It's terrifying, honestly, and ultimately tragic, because if you think about it, um, the people that like that post, that are going to share her post where she's bashing her own parents, or where she's doxing them,
Yeah.
they're not going to be there for her when she's in her 40s or 50s and miserable or something. That's
Yeah.
not going to be the replacement, that's going to fill the role of a family. That pleasure, or that rush, is fleeting, and
Yeah.
she's forever damaged the connections that she has to her parents, to the social safety net that we traditionally rely on, for what?
Yeah.
For the passing entertainment of strangers on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, you won't get the family support, but you'll definitely get the support of box wine and cats.
And cats don't give good hugs. And yeah, absolutely. That was it's so specific yet just poignant. I loved it, Lutz.
Well, I mean, there's a reason for these things. I believe that. So, as you know, I do music for over 5 years now, and in the music community, majority of everybody who goes to shows and concerts, they're quite liberal, very liberal. Um, and there's nothing wrong with that. And in many cases, I found myself in my late teens and early 20s. I was like, oh, I guess if I'm identifying with some sort of side, I would say I'm a liberal person because to each their own, live and let live type of thing. Like, yeah, I'm all for it. Like, do what you got to do as long as you're happy with it, as long as you're not physically hurting other people around you because of what you're doing. But
It's a
the
fairly
more
moderate position. Yeah.
Right, and I think a lot of people can get down with that no matter what, because it seems like the fair thing to do. But then I start to get a little older and I start to do more research, actual research, really try to educate myself and really get in there. And I end up finding out that in many cases, sure, I still believe in what I just said about the whole live and let live. But now more so than ever, you see people crossing over that line of they really are trying to push their ideologies onto you in a way that you're like, okay, I don't know if you think you're doing God's work or something, but the moment that you try to push it onto somebody, that's when I physically have a problem with it. I didn't before, but now that it's being shoved down my throat, now I do have to put my foot down. And so I personally have experienced friendships that have come to an end over the last 2 years or so due to those whole hype on activism over the last year and a half. Have you noticed like any sort of supercharge? I mean, this is kind of like probably an obvious answer. So I want to hear what you have to say in regards to. It seems like we're winding up something that's about to pop off even bigger in regards to the energy that activism is starting to pick up. I don't know if you follow me here, but I guess the question is like, do you see activism now? And I'm specifically talking about the United States. Do you think it's getting the results that they are trying to get? Do you think it's being efficient?
So I was recently talking with one of my colleagues here in Utah, who was more of a moderate, and it was on like that widening gap between the seemingly opposed radical left and radical right, and they were my colleague they were bemoaning what they saw as an insurmountable gorge or canyon that we'd never be able to recover from. That political activism, extremism in politics, or increasing polarization is just ruining everything. And we're getting to the point where we're either past or we're at the point of no return.
Yeah.
And it just depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
And for me, I guess being ever the class clown, I was immediately like, well, if you're a reactionary like me, that's a good thing. It's just like, oh, it's great if everything just is wild and crazy, because then you can take advantage of the chaos or whatever. But my more serious follow-up response was that it really comes down to your own. Oh, it's telling me that my connection is unstable. Was any of that coming through?
Oh, you're good. You're good. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. So, oh man, what was I just saying? I just lost. What was it? There was a specific turn of phrase or something that I was on.
So radical left, radical right, coming to a point of no return.
Yes. It ultimately comes down to one's own belief about the nature of man. And so if you truly fear your fellow man, if you are constantly paranoid about how evil people are, but that you can't trust your own neighbors, your own family members, then yes, the increasing polarization, the widening gap between the radical left and right, is going to seem like something we've crossed the Rubicon, and we're past the point of no return. However, I guess by contrast, if you believe in the goodness of your fellow man, if you believe in a higher good, it follows that there's still hope. It follows that the majority of people that you know, the majority of human beings, will ultimately react more moderately, or there'll be a middle ground to be found. Whether or not it's visible right now or not is another question. And so I for me, as for me in my house, I choose to believe in the goodness of man. I choose to believe that there's still hope, and we have a long ways to go to repair all the damage that's been done in the increasing polarization of politics. But it's not, we're not yet to the point where we should start writing everything off. And for me, that just makes me a little bit happier, and it helps me approach my detractors, my most vocal opponents, with a little more humanity than I think I would normally be willing to cede or to give them, because ultimately I think, although I do believe in the goodness of man, I think that I'm a petty asshole and stuff. And so I think forcing myself to believe that other people are good, if not better than myself, keeps me happy, and it helps me make these interactions with people less automatically toxic and less ultimately destructive.
Don't be bringing any toxic masculinity around here.
I do try my best not to and stuff. So yeah, I'd say yeah, it's a mixture of both of both sides of or both camps, if you will. It is a mess, but it's not ultimately this isn't permanent, is what I would like people to walk away with.
Well, I think this is a great spot for us to end at here. I think we're coming to the top of the hour, but dude, it's been so good. I mean, honestly, I feel like we could make this to a 3-hour episode, to be entirely honest. And so I guess before we finish things off here, where are some what are some of the social pages that people can keep up with what you're doing and follow you?
So I'm all over the place, honestly, and most of my stuff is usually under the title TYLTK, which when I was in middle school or whatever, I thought was cool because it stood for thought you'd like to know. So TYLTK. I'm on Twitter every once in a while, and I have a blog page which I update sporadically. TYLTK.withknown.com, and I would direct you to that because it's more cohesive, or it's more it's more polished thoughts as opposed to stupid reactionary memes or political hot takes and stuff. They're like legitimate essays and actual things that I think are critical for people to understand if they want to try to understand me and my bullshit, if you will. But yeah, still don't have too much going on Facebook or Instagram at this point. I mean, I'm out there, but I had to go with new names and everything, just because I got new platform. They wouldn't even Zuckerberg don't like me.
I know, dude, but hey, they can't contain the truth. And I'll put the link to all those links that you just said right there on the description, so people can find you just fine. But aside from that, man, once again, I appreciate you coming out. There's a lot of golden nuggets in this conversation, and I had a really good time.
It was wonderful talking with you, Lucas. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, man, of course. So there you have it, guys. Until the next episode, we'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching this episode from Appropriate Culture. If you want to watch other episodes, make sure to make your way to appropriateculture.com. You can also hang out with us in other social media platforms. They're all in the link in the description. And aside from that, if you want to listen to the podcast on other platforms like Audible, Spotify, any of those, you can also find us there as well. Link in the description. Take it easy, guys. Have a good day.